So our first quality is earth. This is the quality of what it sounds like: stability, having your feet on the ground. This might be quite ordered, fairly controlled, very practical, someone that checks things, someone that has a house where everything's neat and ordered in their right place. Working through the body, it's a down feeling. The attention is down, the intention is down, the knees are bent. You can work with postures to build this. Palms down. Notice the voice kind of drops too, yeah? Breathing in the belly. The movement is slow and steady. You can see some people moving with this element. So A, to try it and to see if it feels familiar to them. So earth quality. So fears rushing, fears lack of control, fears change. It likes stability, control, and correctness. So you can walk in a pattern. Virtues of justice, wisdom, temperance, groundedness. People that like the facts, people that like numbers, regularity, reliability. Square feeling, down. It's kind of like a monarch quality sometimes, or the emotions might be sadness or kind of steadiness. Heavy, still, direct. You can stop from time to time. Grounding down. Kind of planting the feet. Legs wide, if you ever want to stop and take that earth stance with the wide legs. Breathing with the belly, slow in the nose, out the mouth. Considered, careful. Emotionally stable. How was it to come out of it, Wendy?
I couldn't wait to come out of it. It was so lacking in a spark for me and an energy, a more lucidity. It was far too staid.
So with any form, we're noticing, is it familiar? Is it not familiar? Is it uncomfortable? If something's uncomfortable, we often then the mind will start sort of judging it and making it bad. Like you might say this was boring, or you said staid, or did anyone ever have any other judgments?
I noticed that it was strengthening. I came out of it with some enthusiasm, like grounded enthusiasm.
Grounded enthusiasm, okay. So with any of the virtues too, there's strengths and virtues that come with them, yeah? I want my accountant to have a good earth quality, so they check things, they're grounded, they're reliable, they're steady. So Francis, my colleague, I know him quite well, there's an earthiness to Francis. It's in his embodied way of being, it's in his voice, it's in the way he acts and interacts in the world, yeah?
I think in my experience, that earth quality, the kind of upsides can be a kind of strength and stability, and as with anything, there can be downsides. And I think often earth people need a certain amount of regularity and familiarity. Too much adventure can be challenging for earthy people, or too much change can be difficult to manage from that kind of earthy place.
The question is always, do I use this too much? Having access to it, great, but is it the only thing you can do? Is it the only sort of channel on the TV or the radio that you're tuned into, yeah? Is there other things I need to balance this as well? These are the kind of questions which can be interesting. Of course, then we get into practices, the kind of practices that may build earth qualities in someone. That could be something like gardening outside, it could be walking a bit slower, it could be doing your accounts regularly, it could be spell checking things. There's a million ways. In embodiment, these kind of forms, practices that involve steady movement, grounded movement can be particularly helpful. So the next element is water. This is about flowing, it's about receptivity. The water element is also quite grounded, so it's the kind of next most grounded after earth. But there's this idea of taking in, receiving, so it's a very yin quality. Water people tend to be kind of good listeners, tend to be go with the flow a little bit. So there's more flexibility than the earth element. So water is very relational, and the fear there is often conflict or lack of harmony. Water is often sort of trying to make nice, trying to accommodate. So water can also fear loss because it loves connection so much. And people that have a water tendency can be really good at connection, really good at harmonizing, very loyal, for example, as well. So of water, the qualities of acceptance, of relaxation, can be very relational, very accommodating, those kind of things. In the body, we see the hips moving with water, that fluidity, that flow can come in a different way. So you'll see in the embodied kata, there's the back shape, which I associate with the receptivity of water. So water is in the hips, it's flowing, it's more yin, lots of relaxation. So relax the belly, relax the jaw. And it's often a kind of backwards receiving movement as well, yeah? Flowing, heavy, indirect movement. You can breathe into the back as well as the belly. It's relational, so making sure you're taking the others in the room into account, harmonizing with the others, considering the others. These are very water qualities. What needs to be accepted right now? How can you care for yourself and the others? Being the river. Flowing, flexible, heavy movement, soft focus with the eyes as well. So show of hands, who was this familiar to? Yeah, oh, okay, because I caught a water, not so much, okay, not so much. Okay, let's start over here then.
It's too gentle, I wanted some fire.
You wanted some fire, okay, that's
Yeah.
next, don't worry, that's next.
Yeah, but this is something that I don't have enough of in my life. I don't
Okay.
go with the flow as much. I want things to be done like
Okay,
lack
and what's the
patience.
cost? What's the cost of not having access to this element?
Crash and burn.
Crash and burn. Okay, so we'll see this with, that's a kind of fire cost, I imagine, yeah? Okay, great. And what might more of this element add, even though you found it difficult by the looks of things? What would that add to your life to have more of this?
Less stress, more
Less-
acceptance.
more acceptance.
Probably being more productive as well.
Okay, so
And
actually
probably a bit more empathy.
empathy is
Yeah.
about listening, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, receiving the other. Yeah, great. Okay. You can see in his embodiment as well, there's an earth quality and there's a fire quality, but I'm not seeing so much of this kind of water quality. So if I was to look at him, my guess would have been he'd be the person in the group that would have the most difficulty with this particular element.
For me, it was nice to be able to blend with other people, like to have the sense of feeling the flow of others and join with them. It felt very comfortable.
Yeah, so joining, comfort, connection, flow, these are very water qualities. So in terms of practices, it could to build water, maybe you just do what you do, but a bit more flowing, a bit more relationally, a bit more accommodating. Maybe you take a practice of a certain kind of walking, walking with that flow. Maybe you take up a kind of dance like salsa, which has a real kind of flow to it, yeah? So many ways you can develop that water quality. Socially, it could just be that you listen to someone every day. You listen to your partner for 10 minutes when they come in from work every day. That becomes your practice, yeah? The next element is fire, my personal favourite. This is to do with driving, to do with doing, taking action, getting results. At its worst, it could be pushy or arrogant or kind of not so relational, to focus on the task. Obviously, it's quite energized. There's a lot of movement and dynamism to fire. It likes achievement, it likes action. In emotional terms, if water's more about awe or fear, then fire's more about anger or aggression or engagement, that kind of warmth of moving forwards. There's a real vitality to fire. It's where that sort of energy, that oomph comes from. Maybe the fears there are kind of not being enough, not doing enough. So this is the fire form, the emphasis on the kind of flames and the action and the forwards movement, like ready to go forwards is the main direction of fire. There's a sense of direction, there's a kind of pushing, a quickness to it, yeah? Make sure that forwards movement is there, purposeful. Lots of movement, but light, but also direct. Narrower focus than water, more narrow focus, dynamic. Still quite a lot of change there, more change than earth. What needs to be done? You can have emotions, but make sure they're energized and you express them, yeah? Tell, challenge, be sincere. Courage, curiosity, vitality, fierceness. Desires, recognition, winning, results. Fears, losing, not doing enough. If you relate to people, see if you can challenge them or motivate them. Okay, how was that one?
Well, I'm not at my best because of my arm, but generally want a lot more of it.
You liked it a lot.
So yeah,
okay.
I could do that again. Just give me a minute, It's that kind of feeling for that.
So usually the ones that we are familiar, we find easier. So they take less energy, and I could do that again, no problem. Yeah, even you might be physically out of breath, your system's going, actually, there's more of that's fine. Yeah.
The kind of passion of it I enjoyed, but the confrontation element, confrontation and competition feels like I have to really work hard to do it. I have to really I almost have to work out how to do it. So there's aspects of fire that I feel okay about, or I still have to bring attention to it.
Yep.
There's definitely some of the core aspects that I find quite uncomfortable.
Now, Frankie's someone that's done a lot of embodied practice. He's built a lot of range, so he's able to do fire. You know, I saw him embodying it really well, actually, and I know in life he can do those challenges, those, you know, boundary setting, those kind of fire things, and it may still be slightly more difficult or slightly more energy for him, slightly more effort for him than it would be for someone like myself, where it's more habitual kind of disposition. You know? It also means that that's his water element really coming out there, which is very strong. It also means that we might work really well as a team, because I have more of a kind of natural fire element or habitual fire, and Frankie more on the water, which I find much harder. So when we do training together, for example, that's quite a nice team, because he can really support people and I can challenge them, and we both find each of those things, you know, comfortable. Yeah. The next element, one I like a lot too, is air. They all have their strengths, and some of the strengths of air would be like vision, creativity. There's a lightness to air as well, so there's a joy emotionally. We think of joy, and if it gets tense with that, sort of stress and excitement's part of that air quality too. Air is obviously the most flexible, the most movement, even more so than water. So very good with change, likes novelty, good with good ideas, doesn't like being controlled, not so good at checking things. You can think of this as the counterpoint to earth. Air can also have a kind of spiritual uplift quality. Well, spirituality is part of all of them. That air spirituality, if you see sort of monks of any tradition, they're often this very upright, sort of floating along, yeah? So the idea of unattachment is part of air. Another big part of air, because of this vision, this perspective taken on attachment, is humour. So it tends to be the one where people do it, they have a lot of fun when you see them, people that are really embodying air, because of all that flexibility and the ability to change and move and shift direction, yeah? So if the question for earth is what is true, the question for fire is what needs to be done, the question for water is what needs to be accepted, the question for air is what is possible. Freedom, creativity, transcendence, inspire each other, be original, joke, have fun, and let the joy come out. Be unattached, moving away from things. What is possible? Be creative, be flexible. Have a big vision. Breathe in the upper chest, float. Let your hands move, let your hands constantly change shape. Okay, hands up if it was familiar. Yeah, okay, quite a lot. Hands up if it was a little more challenging. Yeah. You look like you were struggling a little bit there, Frankie, as well. Yeah. At times. Okay, anyone comments about what they liked or didn't like?
There is a familiarity between fire and air, which is they are, so I don't know, they move from a place where I completely surrender and I don't take care of my breathing, or I just go with whatever is happening, which is not something that occurs with earth or water.
Mm-hmm. So they're both lighter elements, yeah.
Lighter, faster, and yeah, more in the breathing for me anyway.
Great. So the breathing is different in each of them, actually. You could just use the breathing to explore any one of these patterns.
I really enjoyed that, but I noticed the strain on my ankles. And I'm somebody who trips, and I came off my bike the other week, you know, so I think this is very familiar to me, but, you know, this part of me is very weak. So, and the chaos when you just surrender, I mean, that's familiar to me as well, but I noticed where I needed to ground.
Mm-hmm. So it might be you need the counter-react to this is the pairing of this would be earth, with the grounding,
gardening.
the ankles, those sort of things, yeah. In terms of practices to develop air, it could be visioning more at work, being flexible in your working methods. It could be joking more. It could be anything that involves that flexibility and creativity. Doing something every week that you've never done before, trying a new restaurant when you go out. Many ways to practice it. In the body, this extension, this breathing, these kind of floating movements, these different kinds of dance, well, that's more there. So again, lots of ways to practice. So in terms of kind of work applications, we might see earth as being the one about being solid, about checking the figures and the facts, having a plan in place. Fire's the thing that makes sure the job gets done, that drives through, that stays up late to push through on the project. Water's kind of listening to feedback, taking information from the market, listening to what the market needs, and also the relationships in the team. And air would be having an overall vision, some creativity, some flexibility when things change, as they will. So you can see that they're all vital in a work situation.